Welcome to the SPS Digital Learning Hour.
Brought to you by the Digital Learning and Assessment Department.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Mike Thomas.
And I'm Suzanne Zargis.
We're bringing you the latest news in Springfield Public Schools in regards to technology, along with inspiring interviews from teachers who are using technology in the classroom.
We'll also inform you of latest updates, practices, and news as it pertains to our district. Whether you're new to using technology in the classroom or are a seasoned vet, we are here to help.
Coming up next, Hot Takes. This week's In Case You Missed It, the latest blog post is up, and as promised from an earlier podcast, it was all about the SAMR model. And so we go in depth about how SAMR is related to Bloom's. If you've listened to the podcast, you've got an idea about what it is. And so go ahead and take a look at the blog the following week. So next week on Wednesday, we'll post the newest one, which will get more in depth about ways to include SAMR in your classroom and in your planning. So check it out.
In case you missed it, there are multiple ways to view your students' quiz results within Brightspace. The default in Brightspace is to view by user. You have a drop-down arrow next to that point on your screen where you can change that to view by section. So if you have multiple sections of your class, you can change that default and then view one class at a time. Very helpful. Another way to view your results is, if you notice there are 3 different tabs within that section, try clicking on the Attempts tab. Again, the default is User. There are 2 other choices for you on that screen. Click the Attempts tab, and then you'll have an option to view only those student results that have been ungraded or graded or may have a specific score. So check it out.
That's it for In Case You Missed It. Coming up next, Hot Takes. This week for my hot take, I actually read an article about the idea behind a EPortfolio. So back when I was in school, Suzanne, one of the things we had to do for being a teacher was create a portfolio. So I was very familiar with that process. A lot of my classmates chose to get giant binders and shove everything in the binder and have it all tabbed and labeled. That's not me and that's not my style. And so I was part of a program that allowed us to make digital portfolios. So we went very basic. We used Word, took pictures, and put it all in there together so that it would help us with getting jobs later. And coincidentally, it did, because I could send it out easily to places where I wasn't living yet. And so for me, the EPortfolio, or at this time, we didn't call it that, we called it a digital portfolio, really helped me get a job. It also helped me get my teaching license when I was in Vermont. And so the idea behind a portfolio is that it's a collection of who you are as a student, and when you're going for your teaching degree, it's who you are as a teacher and what you believe, how you teach, examples of how you would teach. And so this article was entitled, "What Will Digital Portfolios Mean for College-Bound Students?" I found it really interesting that what I had to do in college, we're starting to think about having high schooler students do now. And so throughout the article, it talked about the introduction was fantastic, and it was a great way to kind of explain how college admissions kind of work. The person had them create a paper airplane, like a freshman in high school, create a paper airplane and throw it to the stage to the college that they wanted to go to. There's more details in the article. You can read more about it. But essentially what she was trying to get across is, well, some of you made airplanes that sailed cleanly and smoothly. Others needed help along the way. And the idea behind the portfolio is that it's your help along the way to help get you to college or that career that you're looking for.
Yes, Mike, there's so much. My mind is racing right now from having read the article and listening to your introduction I have 3 different points that I could make, but we'll start with one and see where it goes. So when you started talking about the digital portfolio that you put together when you graduated college or got your teaching degree, I remember when I got my master's in education and I had to put my portfolio together, I did not do it digitally. It was all on paper. And of course, I like scrapbooking, so I did all the creative, artsy kind of pieces to it. And I was very happy with it in the end. I thought it accurately portrayed who I was as a teacher, who I was as a person, what my strengths were, and what I thought would be a great tool in the interviewing process. But I can completely understand the benefits to doing it digitally because, as you mentioned, you could send your digital portfolio to states that you weren't living in. You could send it far away. I couldn't exactly do that with my big scrapbook kind of portfolio.
Not without spending $100 or so per portfolio at Staples.
And add in all the time that it took me to do the more crafty parts of my portfolio. So there's definitely an advantage to that. And one thing that came to mind along the same lines is the process that my daughter went through when she was applying for college. I was unaware going into it how much things had changed over time. So when I applied to colleges, of course, everything was snail mail and on paper with a typewriter. You know, I did my essay questions at the kitchen table on a typewriter, which I was very happy to say was an electric typewriter. But it was all very, very different from what it is today. So when my daughter applied to college, it was all online. They have the Common App and everything is digital and off it goes to however many colleges she chose to apply to.
Well, even think about applying for jobs today. Like to apply for a job in Springfield, you have to go to Recruit and Hire. And in Recruit and Hire, you have pages upon pages to fill out for whatever position you're applying for, whether it's being a teacher at a school or a position like what we have, or there are screens upon screens that you have to fill in information. So the old one-page resume now is like 20 pages. The old cover letter is now not only just a cover letter, but then there's also essays that you have to write to like why you want the job. Or I know for when I applied for this position, I had to answer a couple of questions, but that took time and it took planning. And just to get for the hiring committee to like have an idea of who they're getting. So a lot of colleges go through this same kind of process. They not only get a paper application, if that's what they're asking for, but they have all these other things that they require too. So it's no longer, back when we were applying for colleges, a lot of it was about SAT grades, what extracurriculars did you do? And it was all like, we want it to be one-page written paper about who you are. And I don't think I could write one page, let alone 5 pages, and accurately portray who I am. Like, it takes a lot more than that. And that's where I think these digital portfolios can really come in handy. And what I like about the article is that she talks about having students start in 9th grade. And you may use it, you may not. But the idea of creating quality work and storing it gets students thinking critically about what they're doing and what they want. And so even though the planning starts now, like, don't go and visit colleges yet, is one of the things that they were suggesting. First couple of years, it's about learning to curate like what quality looks like. And also with the digital portfolios that they're talking about, we have something called EPortfolio, which is a part of Brightspace. There are other apps out there that are free. They talk about one in the article. But the idea that having some sort of locker, or if we think back to when we were in school, a binder that we would just keep stuff in. And I know when I was doing my teaching binder, I had more stuff in it before I curated it down to what I wanted it to be. There's a process to collecting good work, and what you think is good work in your freshman year, by the time you're a junior, you're like, oh, that wasn't my best work, and I'm not going to include that part. And so it's just a way to curate your materials so that junior year, when you start to think about what colleges more seriously that you want to go to in the application process, you're not scrambling. I remember scrambling my junior year, trying to figure out colleges. I don't know about you, but there was a lot of, what am I doing? What am I doing? I need this. I need that. Everything is January 20th, January 20th.
And I think someone in the article even had that same experience. They talked about scrambling when it came time to get everything together for their college application. And I think I like the article in how it described different ways to use the digital portfolio. So yes, The main goal was to use it for college applications, but I was happy to read that they also talked about the importance of how a teacher implements it or how they train the students to use it. So it's not necessarily always for college, depending on the student, but it has the potential to boost creativity and learning. And as you said, it's a great way to help them think critically about what is their best work. What do they want to showcase at the end of their high school career?
And really reduce stress, because my junior year was extremely stressful of high school, because that's the time when you're taking your SATs and they count. You're no longer doing the PSATs or whatever other practice things you're doing. Like, you take the test usually once, sometimes twice.
Sometimes 3 times.
Sometimes 3 times. I only took it once because I was
done,
beyond frazzled. But it helps reduce because it's a preparation thing. Like, I think about when we have our assessment team meetings and we're talking about the assessments that we're doing, I think about all the things that we're doing helps reduce stress later on for like when it becomes really high stakes. There is a comfort level for those students when they get there. There's a comfort level for those teachers because they've experienced similar experiences, which they can take a deep breath, they can step back, they can know that we've done everything we can, and now we're at the point where we're producing. And so I think there is a comfort that helps with the stress of preparing for college if you start right. And the article does talk about how to do it well and how not to do it.
Right. That was, I went back and forth on my thoughts about this because I could definitely see all the positives, but in the back of my mind, I was a little bit worried. They talk about all the video capability that you have when you're creating your ePortfolio. And on the positive, it allows a student to really show who they are. And they gave an example of one student who was creating their sps-ma, which is
it's another portfolio thing that I think 200 colleges and universities are requiring now as part of their application process.
Right. It's part of the Common App. And I had never heard of it before, but a student can present a video of themselves. And one student was sitting there in a sweatshirt with the hood on, no less, but still just being completely themselves. And the colleges that were looking at that loved it because it was totally who that person was. My fear is in this world of selfies and social media everywhere, I worry about, number one, students who feel they have to have a perfect video. And number two, will there be peer pressure for students who aren't so comfortable in front of the camera to put something out there that may not accurately portray who they are?
Yeah, and I mean, they talk about that when you're going to create your portfolio. It's not about the finished product. It's about the process. And they were talking, sps-ma was a big part of this article. And one of the things that they talked about was they've seen more success with students who were showing their process instead of this is what I did. This is me at this charity. This is me doing this charity. I was volunteering here. I was running track there. I was playing lacrosse here. You can see all these amazing things that I've done. But colleges aren't necessarily looking for nowadays just the amazing things. They're looking for the process. Like, did they work hard to get there? Like, did it take time and practice to do those things? They're not looking for, this is my best piece of writing. They're looking for that process. Because life is a process. College will be a process.
Right. I was very, very happy to read at the end of the article a person saying that they don't expect this to be perfect and they don't expect it to be a representation of that person of when they're going to be 26. They actually say none of us are fully formed at the age of 18, no matter where you go. They're not fully formed human beings at the age of 18. And again, I think of my daughter all the time. She's 18 and she uses that phrase, humans. You know, what are humans like? And she is not a fully formed human at this time. So I was glad that they ended with that. And I also was happy to see that, again, with all the positives and potential for these digital portfolios, they included some more reality points, I guess I'll call them, where this person states that in order to truly change college admissions, more work will need to be done by teachers and schools to think in advance about what the goals of the digital locker are and how to change current work, assignments, curriculum, grades, for example, to meet the new challenges of an online portfolio. So it's a great idea. It's got a lot of potential, but for it to go, fully widespread across the country, a lot more thinking needs to be put into it so that it's consistent no matter which college is looking at your ePortfolio. But I do love it.
Like there needs to be a purpose behind why you're doing it. That one example where you talked about the hood, I'm pretty sure they said, like, I'm doing this because I was told to do it for my application. And then there's other people who were very excited to show who they are. And portfolios like this are not just for art students anymore.
Right.
That was another big thing I pulled out of this is like, it's not just students where portfolio is a good thing. Like, I think of all the drama stuff that I did in school. Like, that would be great to have a small curated thing of like my best acting moments and my best singing moments. Not so much on the drawing, but most of the physical arts that I did and some of the digital arts, like curate the best list so it looks like I am amazing. But that's not the purpose behind it again. It's about showing who you are. Because a lot of times, especially when we were going to school, like if you looked good on paper, you looked good on paper, but it doesn't mean a lick of anything because we could all write and make ourselves look amazing on paper. But like being able to show an authentic version of yourself is really good.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, I was going back and forth on the positives and negatives of this. And as I mentioned earlier, I was thinking of the selfie culture that we're in and whether or not there would be an honest representation of the students. But I'm going to take that whole point off the table because it's no different than what you just described. When you write your college application and your essays and a job resume, you are doing the same thing. The only difference with this is that you can have the video of yourself. So now they know what you look like, which I could go back and forth on that too, right? There might be some underlying bias that comes into play with that. But it could be the opposite, no different from when it was just on paper. So I'm all good with this now. I can't see any negative.
So there's a lot of good things with ePortfolio. One of the things that for next year with Brightspace, we're really going to explore how to use our ePortfolio and how to use it well. So articles like this are helping us gain a better understanding of what this tool that we have available to us can be used for. So if you're looking for more information on what this district provides right now, we have our ePortfolio. And you can go to community.brightspace.com and you can read more about it. Soon we're going to have access to videos from Brightspace all about the ePortfolio. We may even be able to make some of our own depending on our timing and how it all works out and if we truly understand how it can be used. So that's ePortfolios. This article again, for those that will go and read it later, is what will digital portfolios mean for college-bound students?
From Education Week's special report. And the title of this article is Learning Via Playlists. So the title jumped out at me because I know Mike likes his playlists and lists of all things. But then as I got to reading the article, I just couldn't stop. I thought it was so intriguing. And to preface this article, I will just remind our listeners that, again, Mike and I are here to inform and inspire. And just as we just discussed the digital portfolio with Mike's article, a lot of the tools that we read about may not be exactly perfect for Springfield Public Schools or your particular classroom, but I think it's important to always keep your mind open as to new ways of learning and what other schools across the country are doing, depending on the population they have in front of them.
So with all that to say, this could be controversial is what you're saying.
Yes, it could be controversial, but coming from my computer science programming background, I thought it was awesome. So what we're talking about here is how some schools are betting on the curriculum playlists to customize students' learning. Of course, the technology is neither cheap nor proven, as the subtitle says. But bottom line, when you think as a teacher, the time that goes into differentiating your instruction, you may have a basic lesson plan from the curriculum that's provided to you. But any good teacher knows that they look at that lesson and then they think of every student in their classroom, and they spend hours and hours adjusting that one lesson so that it's appropriate for every student in their classroom to learn as much as they can. So this person, Joel Rose, in New York, back in 2009, he and his team, and I'm not clear on exactly who his team was, but they manually used spreadsheets to produce customized, quote-unquote, playlists for their 70 New York City middle school students each day. And the goal was to give each child the best possible content delivered in an optimal manner at the best possible time. So he did that for several years, and then he decided to create a nonprofit organization called New Classrooms. And what this organization does now is everything he did manually, but automatically with algorithms that he and his team have written. So on the positive, I think of how much time that can save teachers in differentiating each and every lesson. And what happens is the students come in and they get their assignments for that day. And whether it is meeting with the teacher one-on-one or a small group or doing work online, they do their work for the day. And the results of that work go back into the system, which then runs the algorithm overnight. And the next day they come in and both the teachers and the students now know what the plan is for that day. It can be a little confusing at first.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I read the article like 4 or 5 times before I even started taking notes because I wanted to try to understand what I was reading. So even when you were explaining it, essentially what happens is students take a quiz in the morning.
They do an assignment. It doesn't necessarily have to be a quiz.
So, and then that turn around and that sets them up with their playlist for the day of the things that they're learning. And then they take an exit ticket. Their exit ticket at the end tells the algorithm, or it goes through the algorithm, which takes...
I'll stop you there.
Okay.
So, because I already hear a little piece differently from my interpretation. So my interpretation is that it's not necessarily they take a quiz first thing in the morning. It's everything they did the day before is what goes into the system overnight. So all the results of their work the prior day determine what they're going to do that day.
So how do the standards fit into this?
Well, this is the piece that wasn't told to us in this article.
Oh, okay. So I wasn't missing anything then, because I'm like, all right, so we have a set of standards that we follow. Most states, all but 5, I think, are Common Core states.
Yep.
And they all have a set of standards that they have to follow. So how does this fit into that?
Right. So, again, going back to my computer science background, a computer is never going to tell anybody to do anything that the computer wasn't told to do. So somebody behind the scenes is writing these algorithms and writing the program. So knowing all the standards that are required in a particular grade level, the person writing the algorithm is going to know 2nd grade or 4th grade or whatever grade it is. And they're going to have all the material in front of them, all the resources in front of them, have all the experience, the background that's necessary for good teaching. And they're going to decide, okay, if I have a student who is working on this assignment and they don't understand this particular aspect of that assignment, then just as we would in Brightspace right now, think of a variation of what we've talked about with personalized learning within Brightspace. You can direct a child to a particular module based on how they did on an assessment for the prior module. So it's the same kind of thinking, just on a much grander scheme.
Yeah, so what does that mean if a student is behind and they're like multiple levels behind and they have a state standardized test coming up, but the school is following this model? And so in theory, the algorithm would kick out what would be appropriate for that student, but what would be appropriate for that student wouldn't necessarily be what is appropriate for that grade level.
Right. So again, always remember that it's not going to do anything that the writer of that algorithm doesn't tell it to do. So whoever is creating that algorithm is going to know, okay, if this student is particularly low in these 3 areas, and yet we know for that particular grade they need to master these standards, they can write and adjust those algorithms to be sure that they're given the correct material in order to do well on that assessment. The human being always has control in the end. So even with all of this in place, the teacher is still a critical piece of it all. At any time, the teacher could choose to not implement that playlist that day. They could say, you know what, we're going to skip 2 days and we'll come back to it. Human beings are always necessary and always in control. And again, you can fine tune the algorithms to any degree that you'd like. So it's another example, in my mind, it's another example of something that has such great potential. And right, it's absolutely not perfect. And there are schools that used it that there were many schools, let's see, more than a quarter of the 53 schools that started with this, particularly in math, chose to stop using it for math. So obviously there's something not quite right with the math aspect of this one. But then other schools have been very successful. So it has a lot of potential. It needs some improvement, but I think it's just a great, it's a great tool that I'd love to see happen appropriately in more schools.
So one of the things that jumped out at me was the pure cost of this. So there's the cost of renovating, because they talk about having 70 students in one room. It's like there's a pure cost of like renovating the rooms, and then there's the software cost. And I figured this out because I was curious. So the yearly software that they use costs $225 per student, which for the 25,000 students in our district would be $5.6 million.
Exactly, right? That's insane. Can't even imagine spending that amount of money to buy this particular program.
That's just the software. Then it costs schools, then they have to pay the new classrooms, nonprofits, somewhere between $90,000 and $160,000 for the year. So
right.
It's hard to envision this being something on a grand scale, like a large district. I know it says that they're in 10 districts, but a total of 11,000 students, that's a little less than half of our district.
Right. So what I love to do when you start thinking about all of those specifics, right, which are just incredibly out of reach, instead of just shutting it down and saying, no, can't do it, bad idea, so many things wrong with it, look at it again and take away what's good about it, what's positive about it, and then be the edupreneur and say, how can I do this without paying them? What can we do within Brightspace to function similarly, but at no cost whatsoever? And I think that's a definite possibility and something that we can work on going forward. Any listeners out there who are up for this challenge, let us know, and I will definitely be on board with that.
One of the other things I found interesting in the article is they talk about how when it comes to technology and algorithms, people don't need proof because they don't understand it. And that I think they even say that people don't really demand evidence when technology and algorithms are involved because they're bewildered. They don't understand it in the first place. And I mean, I clearly don't even understand. Right,
exactly. When I was in a different job, when I was still programming, I always remember this wise man who said that if you are presenting a very complicated program to your peers or even your supervisors, you won't get any questions. But if you go into that same meeting and start talking about a bicycle, you will be in there for an hour and a half because everybody understands a bicycle and will ask you so many questions you wouldn't even be able to leave. So algorithms and many things computer science related and many things technology related, right? A lot of people just don't understand it and are quick to shut down. I aim to change that.
So, it's great to have personalized learning, and I think that's something that we all kind of strive for in our classrooms, and that's where programs that we use right now, many schools are using iReady, which personalizes learning. Students take a quiz at the beginning, and it puts them into the grade appropriate level of where their abilities are, and then they play games and learn through that to build their way up. But it's very systematic in how it follows, because it follows a curriculum itself. This, to me, and as a teacher, I can plan for that pretty well, because I can go and I can look and I can see, all right, these students are working on these skills, which will help them when we do this in class. So I'm going to push what we're going to do in class off to next week and do this other thing, which will help them now learning. It seems to me if they're creating a new playlist every night, as a teacher, I would be scared, because it'd be pretty hard to plan. I remember I sit on Sundays, I watch football, I do my planning. When football season wasn't on, randomness was on. But there's an aspect of planning, principals demand lesson plans at the beginning of the week for the week. So it would be definitely a whole mind shift for everybody involved, because as a teacher, I don't know what's going to happen the next day.
Exactly. I mean, number one, totally a radical shift, as we've been saying for multiple podcasts, definitely a radical shift. But yes, that was a point that many teachers brought up, that they felt limited by the technology because they wanted the freedom to plan more than a day ahead. And I completely agree. I mean, many teachers plan several weeks ahead. So it is a huge shift in what a classroom is going to look like, and not an easy shift at that.
See, because it even takes away unit studies, and book studies, because kids can't read a book in a day. If you want them to read a novel, if I was to say I have a group of students whose reading level is at a W or an X or a Y or a Z, thinking the Fontes-Pinnell level, and I want them to read a novel. Those novels are going to be 300 to 500 pages long. They're not going to be able to sit there all day and read that.
No, but see, again, because I understand more of the process of creating some of these algorithms, you can make it do whatever you want it to do. But that's far...
But the teacher doesn't have any control over that algorithm.
No,
but this new classrooms has control over the algorithm.
If we were to purchase new classrooms, yes, that is true. Mm-hmm. But if we take the concept and do our own thing, we can fine-tune it to whatever degree we want. So it's thinking outside of that box and taking what is as a basis, I consider to be a great idea, but then using it to our advantage and fine-tuning it to the way we want it to be. And I had another point, but I lost it. I think it was when you mentioned it eliminates the opportunity for units or cross-curriculum type of lessons. And again, if you write the algorithm and the right people are writing it and the right input is heard, you could make it do whatever you want it to do. It's possible. I believe it's possible. Obviously not something that can be done in a day or a year or maybe even multiple years, but I love the idea that it's different and they're trying to reach absolutely every single child in every single classroom in the way that's going to be best for them. If we don't keep trying new things, then that's when we get stuck and we lose out. So I guess that was my bottom line to this, is to constantly keep an open mind as to what can work and to not get discouraged with bumps along the way. Nothing's going to be perfect, but we have to just keep trying. Coming up next, our interview with staff from Boland Elementary School. You'll hear them talk about their professional development day in March, where they were fortunate enough to experience something very new and different for a PD day. I think you'll enjoy the interview.
Check it out. Good afternoon. I'd like to just thank my panelists here today for today's interview. So we're just going to go around and introduce ourselves, what our role is in the school, and how long we've been here.
I'm Mary Worthy. I am an assistant principal at Boland Elementary School, and I've been here for 40 years.
I'm Sarah Boisano. I'm the ELA ILS at Boland, and I've worked here for 11 years.
I'm Miranda Weeks. I'm a 4th grade classroom teacher, and I've been at Boland for 6 years.
I'm Lisa Bukowski. I'm the principal of Boland School, and I've been here for 4 years.
Thank you, guys. So, in your time teaching, since all of you have been here for at least 4 years now, how has technology been useful to you in the classroom?
So, actually, when I was teaching around the year 2000, I was at Brunton School, and we were considered to be a laptop school at the time. So each student had a little laptop that they brought home every night, and they could access the internet, and they could do, they could word process. The infrastructure wasn't very strong, so oftentimes they would go down, and which was a real bummer when you were teaching a class that was really reliant upon technology. It would often freeze and go down. Shortly after that, a couple of years later, we had a laptop cart, which I housed in my classroom because nobody else wanted to touch it at the time because it was really intimidating. Wow, fast forward like 15 years now, and every student in grades 3 through 5 have their own real laptop, not a little thing that they would carry like a little suitcase. And they're using it in their classes every day, and they're bringing them. Some of our 5th graders are bringing them home at night. And the infrastructure is so strong that 99% of the time every student's on at the same time, and teachers are really excited to use them. So you don't see as much as the hesitancy and the fear nowadays, and it's been nice to really see that evolve.
I love using them in the classroom with my students. I have some students that might struggle with handwriting, and then they have the option to type it on the laptop, and they get so much more into it. And then they'll take it a step further and maybe make a PowerPoint presentation. So their creativity really gets to show through using the technology in the classroom.
I agree. I think that before using technology, the teachers would focus mostly on like the word processing or maybe using a set up program like for reading or math, but now we're starting to see the shift that the kids are able to create different things and share them with other teachers even in the school, and we've been talking about how that might even be able to go across schools. So it's a really huge shift, and I think it's awesome for the kids.
And I guess I'm the oldest one at the table, and I have been working for a number of years. And so just personally speaking, I was accustomed to, in the very beginning of my career, working with key punch cards. So now to see the fascination with technology and kids that are working with the technology and teachers who are using that technology is fascinating. And to have like 1st graders and 2nd graders who are actually programming various applications, it's amazing.
Yeah, a lot has changed in the past. I can even remember when I was in school and being a student, we had Math Blasters, and we had Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego and Oregon Trail, and just seeing how like different tools have changed. What are some of the better changes that you guys have seen?
So yeah, I mean I just aged myself when you said that, because that's what we used in the classroom when I was using technology. So yeah, that's exactly what it was, right? So they were more like games, and they reinforced skills, but they were standalones. It really wasn't integrated into the curriculum at all. It was almost like it kept the student busy for a little bit, and it couldn't be that bad because they were doing math facts. But it wasn't actually, integrated to a point where it was actually augmenting the curriculum. It was just a standalone.
It gives an opportunity to provide lots of visuals through videos and multimedia for students that may not have access to what we're discussing. They may not have that prior knowledge, so being able to talk about something in class and then find a video to help elaborate, it really makes a big difference for our English language learners.
Discovery Ed's been a good tool to use for that, for the videoing. I think we had looked at Kahoot and Quizlet a lot in the building with different teachers, and I think those are really beneficial sites that are free that teachers can use to create flashcards and quizzes and just all sorts of things that can help with the curriculum, and then the kids can also create things on there.
And I think kids are so used to working on computers at home or just working with the technology that once they get to school, they can incorporate really using technology in terms of their academics and improving their academics.
So now this might be a random question out in left field, but how many of you have created your own videos to use in the classroom?
Yet.
I created a video that I used with staff. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to exemplify what it looks like to build relationships with students. So I took clips of 3 different teachers interacting with students, and then I showed them to the staff so that they had an idea. It wasn't that they were looking at some school in some state and some country. They were looking at our teachers with our students and how they were building relationships with them. So I've used that. Mm-hmm.
After Lisa did that with the staff at a staff meeting, it gave us an idea to do that around our curriculum areas. So we're in the midst of planning that to tape different teachers doing certain things that they're really good at and kind of putting them together so that if somebody is struggling in that area, they can go back and check that out for looking at somebody in our school.
We have sort of a catalog, right?
Exactly.
So like if I am having trouble with student engagement, that there would be that little clip that I could watch. That would be an exemplar.
Yeah.
So this all leads me to part of why we're here today, which is to talk about your last PD day. So would anyone like to describe what you guys did here on that day?
I can start. I'm in a real unique position, as is Mary, because we're able to go in classrooms every day and see the great things that staff is doing. They don't get an opportunity to go and observe each other because they're just so busy in their own classrooms. So we have been seeing some remarkable things happening with technology and the new We Learn initiative that we thought, how do we get everyone else to see this? So what we did is we created a day where certain people were asked to present. It was a 40-minute presentation. It was 20 minutes of kind of instruction and 20 minutes of practice time. And then teachers rotated through different mini courses, mini lessons, and they self-selected what they wanted to attend. So once I got the group together, was probably, I think, 16 people. They had to nail down what it was that they thought they were pretty confident with in presenting, and then we put it out as a menu, and people selected their choices, and it was really easy. I just threw it into a Google form and put it into a spreadsheet, and there it was. There was the schedule for the day. So it was rather easy, and that's how we started, but maybe somebody else wants to add in.
I really thought it was a valuable professional development, probably one of the best ones I've been to, because we got to learn firsthand from teachers in the building using certain programs and technology. so they know where there could be problems or conflicts, so they've already used it and they can tell you exactly what you need to know to be able to use it effectively in the classroom. So I thought it was really valuable.
And to that point, Miranda, we do have an instructional technology teacher, so it would have been very easy for him to plan an entire day, but I thought there was some worth in having a variety of people, because we're all in different places in the spectrum of integrating technology in our classrooms. So by having a variety of people from all expertise levels.
There is some grading coming around this room right now.
From all different levels, those that are very much beginners to those who have been doing it for years, and getting to hear from your colleagues was really important.
And I think the design of the actual professional development was just perfect. To have that, the instruction first, and then to let the teachers go and do their thing and kind of imagine and test out how they could use it in their own classroom. So it was a great design. And I think most of the teachers that participated in the actual selection of training, I think they found it beneficial, most beneficial.
Yeah, I know, like, when we've gone out and done trainings, like we've done trainings with the paras, we've done trainings at our tech coordinator meetings, what we found to be the most beneficial was, here's a little bit of how you do something, now go and start to play with it, try it out, see on your own, come up with your own questions, come up with your own what you're doing, and to us, that's what we've been seeing as the most beneficial.
Some of the feedback that we got also was that the teachers loved being able to choose their own topics, because we have a huge staff here, so when the ILSs give PD or administration, it's obviously we're just focusing on one thing, but they were able to choose something that they needed more help with, so that was really huge for them.
And I also found it to be important to make sure that they saw admin as instructional leaders as well. So I insisted upon both assistant principals and myself also presenting alongside teachers. And that was kind of different, but I thought it was really necessary to see that, this is not something we're doing onto them, but we're doing with them. And again, regardless of what our skill set is, because both assistant principals said to me, "Are you serious?" But they were phenomenal, and we had rave reviews. Yes. Especially you, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you.
Rave reviews. She learned what Symbaloo was, and she taught it, and
she taught it well. She
taught it very well.
Yes.
So that was the point. It doesn't matter if you're a technophobe or you're a techno-geek. Here it is, and anybody can do it.
It sounds like the staff was really receptive going forward with this once the plan was put out there. How long did it take to kind of bring it all together, would you say?
So it was less than a month. So we have a digital leadership team here, and so those were my first folks that I asked to present, and then my second group was the group that I'd been sending to the discovery trainings, the DLT, and DLT.
We'll go with that.
Okay, that sounds good.
I have a whole chart on my desk.
Yeah, so we have a DLT too. So we have a digital leadership team. So this sounded funny. At any rate, those folks and those that we had sent to Brightspace training, we asked those people to present first. So I gave them a couple of weeks to kind of opt out if they wanted to, or to give me a topic. And then it was just a matter of putting together a Google survey, and folks signed up, and then it was pushing a button to have it create a spreadsheet, and then sent that out, and it was good to go. So it was probably, a few weeks. It took, some of us longer to kind of accustom ourselves to what we were presenting. Like I did the technology integration matrix, which was newly presented to me just a couple months ago. So I really had to spend some time making sure I knew what it was.
When it comes to recording a podcast, we are all very new at this, and this interview was one of the first ones that we did outside of the Tech Symposium. And so we learned that there were a few things that we needed to improve upon, and having good quality audio is one of them. Unfortunately, the second half of our interview, the audio did not go as well, and so we had to cut it short. But we were lucky enough to interview Karen Hall at a later date, who also talked about her experience at the Tech Symposium. So take a listen. Speaking of trying new things, your school was one of the first that I have heard of that had their own tech conference during a PD day. What was that like?
It was really fun because we were able to choose our own, what was going to fit best in our classroom. Mm-hmm. We had, there was many to choose from, maybe 10 different conferences at different times that we were able to cycle in and out of. And the good thing was I was able to be someone in the audience, and then I was also able to be a presenter. So I got the benefits of both sides of it. So one of the things I did show was how I was using Brightspace, and article a day was the other thing that I showed how to do, because it's a free website that has articles that just to give kids more access to more reading, shorter articles. So I held 2 of my own, which helped me in my own leadership and feeling comfortable in my own, technology. Yeah. But then I was able to sit in on others, and I got some great sources and sites and different things that I'm going to be looking at, incorporating. Some I have and some that I'm going to look at more for next year. And we definitely, I think overall, everybody was like, yes, we definitely need more of that.
Well, that was a refreshing interview, hearing about how they use their PD day. So usually at this time, Suzanne and I will kind of recap and talk about the interview. But Suzanne was actually lucky enough to be there on the March PD day. And so she's actually going to tell it from her vantage point, because she wasn't there during the interview.
Yeah, Mike, it was just incredible. I know I've experienced PD days when I was a teacher in a different district, and they're usually very much alike from one year to the next, from one day to the next. You know what to expect, and the day goes along usually without too much excitement, and you're done, right? You learn valuable information, but okay, let's keep going with teaching. This PD day was so exciting. Everyone was high energy. They were excited to learn from their peers. They were just so enthusiastic. They were laughing, they were helping each other, and they couldn't wait to not only teach more people about what they had just learned, but jump to the next session where they're going to learn something else. So all around, I thought it was fabulous. I can't wait to see more schools do the same thing, and they'll probably take over our technology symposium.
It's amazing to see a school come together like that and be like, we have all of these skills each one of us does, and we have the opportunity to actually share it. Because a lot of PD days, you're right, they do kind of run the same way. You know what to expect. When it comes to being taught by your peers, there is definitely a level of excitement and energy in that. And I felt like it really came through in the interview.
Absolutely. And I think teachers always appreciate time where they can collaborate with each other and really learn from each other. And I think in addition to learning from each other within a school, this is going to spread so that they can more and more often collaborate with their peers across the district.
So in our feedback and question of the week time, so we'll start with the question of the week, and I think it's very pertinent considering the interview that we just heard. If you had the opportunity to plan PD for your school, what would be some of the tech tools that you would like to either be taught or to teach yourself? So let us know so that we can kind of help with that and help plan with that. That's it for this week's podcast. I'm Mike Thomas.
And I'm Suzanne Zargis.
And we'll see you next week.